It began with a box carefully curated, immaculately wrapped and dispatched, not just as a gift, but as a statement of intent. Meghan Markle, determined to cement her place within Hollywood's innermost circle, had leaned into a strategy straight from the Kardashian playbook, the As Ever box, a glossy bundle of hand-picked items sent to Kris Jenner, to Mindy Weiss, to members of the Kardashian family themselves, each delivery chosen with one goal in mind: to be noticed, to be endorsed, and most importantly, to be welcomed. In the world Meghan was desperate to join, a repost or a tag from the Kardashians wasn't just a nicety, it was currency, a signal that you belonged to the A-list conversation. For a fleeting moment, it seemed the gamble had paid off. Khloe Kardashian posted a photo featuring one of the items, the kind of seemingly small gesture that in the optics-driven world of celebrity branding could be spun into a narrative of connection. Meghan's team pounced immediately, briefing contacts that the Duchess of Sussex had successfully established rapport with the most influential family in entertainment. To casual observers, the story looks simple. Meghan had cracked the code, finding her way into the Kardashian-Jenner network, positioning herself alongside the women who defined what it meant to dominate culture in the Instagram era. But behind the glossy snapshots, the truth was far less flattering. Insiders whispered that the gift box had been re-gifted, passed along casually, before appearing online, stripped of the personal endorsement Meghan had so clearly sought. The photo that caused such a ripple in Meghan's camp was in reality nothing more than a polite afterthought, a gesture devoid of the kind of genuine embrace that would have marked her as truly welcome. Instead of signaling her arrival, the image only highlighted how forced the connection felt, how much Meghan was straining to attach herself to a circle that had not invited her in. For Meghan, who had built her post-royal persona around the idea of being not just relevant, but indispensable, the difference mattered. Hollywood's upper echelon thrives not on formality or hierarchy, but on perception: who is seen together, who is invited in, and who is left out. The Kardashian-Jenners, for all their controversies, remain arbiters of access, their seal of approval, capable of elevating newcomers into cultural dominance. For Meghan, the As Ever box was not simply a gift but a bid for legitimacy, and the hollow response revealed just how tenuous her foothold truly was. And yet, at this stage, Meghan could still cling to the illusion. Khloe's post, however awkward in origin, was enough to feed headlines, enough to suggest that a door might be opening. In an industry where narratives often matter more than facts, even the thinnest connection could be spun as progress. Meghan's PR team worked overtime, emphasizing the optics, framing the gesture as proof that she was on the cusp of acceptance. It was the kind of storyline that bought her time, that kept critics at bay, that offered her fans a sense of momentum. But if the As Ever box episode was a warning, what came next was the real blow. Just as Meghan was positioning herself as a woman welcomed into Hollywood's most exclusive orbit, she stumbled across a revelation that no amount of PR spin could soften. Late one night, scrolling through Instagram like millions of others, she saw what she had not been told, what she had not been invited to. Kylie Jenner's birthday celebration, the party of the year, a glittering, secretive gathering of the A-list elite. The guest list read like a who's who of modern celebrity: Beyoncé, Dua Lipa, Selena Gomez, Serena Williams, Priyanka Chopra, all basking in the glow of a celebration meticulously curated to showcase power and exclusivity. And Meghan was nowhere to be found. The Duchess realized in the harshest way possible that the doors she thought were opening had slammed shut, and the party that proved it was Kylie Jenner's. The images were impossible to miss, a cascade of glittering snapshots spilling across Instagram, each one more dazzling than the last. Kylie Jenner's birthday celebration, whispered about for weeks in the tabloids and described by insiders as the party of the year, had finally arrived, and the guest list was nothing short of breathtaking. Beyoncé swept in with her entourage. Dua Lipa posed against velvet backdrops. Selena Gomez was caught laughing in the corner of a candlelit terrace, while Serena Williams and Priyanka Chopra, both long associated with Meghan, appeared radiant in photographs that quickly dominated the explore pages of social media. For Meghan, the revelation came with a sting sharper than any tabloid headline. Scrolling through the images in the quiet of her Montecito home, she realized not only that she had not been invited, but that she had learned of her exclusion in the same way as millions of strangers online. This was not a discreet oversight, not a matter of missing a message or declining an invitation. It was a public absence. Her name left off a list where her friends' names shone brightly, her place in Hollywood's hierarchy silently but unmistakably defined. The reaction was immediate and raw. According to those close to her, Meghan was both humiliated and enraged. phoning her PR team well past midnight to demand answers to question how such a snub could have occurred without warning, and to instruct them to find any strategy to contain the optics. Hollywood, she knew, thrived on perception, and perception had just turned against her. In the cold calculus of celebrity, not being at Kylie's birthday was more than a social slight. It was a symbolic message, one that said Meghan Markle was not part of the A-list inner circle she had been trying so hard to penetrate. Harry's response only compounded the damage. Frustrated and protective, he reached out to friends and acquaintances, sending messages that insiders described as testy and out of proportion, questioning loyalties and hinting at betrayal. Instead of projecting quiet dignity, the Sussexes appeared petty and insecure, their reaction amplifying the very narrative they feared most, that they were outsiders looking and desperate for relevance, yet unable to secure it. Within hours, the media seized on the story. British tabloids ran with brutal headlines, from royal to rejected, not A-list, just attention list, while American gossip outlets offered a slightly softer but equally damning take, framing Meghan's absence as proof that her Hollywood rebrand had stalled. Social media, ever merciless, piled on with memes photoshopping Meghan into empty party backdrops, captioning images with biting remarks about her slipping status. Hashtags like Sacro Party Snub and Attention List trended, a digital echo chamber reinforcing the narrative of exclusion. For the Sussexes, this was no ordinary embarrassment. Their entire post-royal brand depended on being seen, on occupying the spaces where influence was brokered and alliances forged. Netflix and Spotify had already loosened their grip, their confidence shaken by underwhelming projects. Now Hollywood itself seemed to signal that Meghan was not relevant enough to merit an invitation to the very parties that defined cultural belonging. In an industry where perception is currency, her absence at Kylie's celebration translated into a devastating devaluation, a visible reminder that Meghan was not, at least for now, part of the club. And then, just as the story threatened to settle into a simple narrative of exclusion, another layer emerged. A leaked internal note from Meghan's own PR team began circulating among journalists, one that suggested the Duchess had been anything but passive in this saga, that she had actively lobbied, reaching out through multiple channels to secure her place at the party, that she had sent gifts and leveraged connections in hopes of being included, only to be declined outright. The revelation changed everything. Meghan had not been forgotten. She had been rejected, a twist that turned a missed invitation into a very public humiliation. The leaked note from Meghan's PR team was not intended for public eyes, a draft of internal talking points that had somehow slipped into the hands of reporters, but once it surfaced, its implications could not be ignored. The carefully worded document confirmed what had only been whispered until then. Meghan had not simply been left off the guest list, she had actively pursued an invitation, employing gifts, favors, and soft diplomacy in hopes of securing her place, only to be met with silence. The revelation upended the narrative entirely. Until that moment, the public could still imagine that Meghan's absence at Kylie Jenner's birthday was a product of oversight or exclusivity, that perhaps the party had been too intimate, the list too small, the politics of guest selection too arbitrary. But the leak stripped away that ambiguity. Meghan had wanted to be there, she had tried to be there, and Hollywood's most visible gatekeepers had drawn a line in the sand, a deliberate no. What made the rejection sting even more was the evidence of just how far Meghan had gone. The as-ever box, once presented as a charming gesture, now looked desperate when reframed as part of a campaign for inclusion. Sources whispered that intermediaries had been approached, old acquaintances quietly nudged the entire effort orchestrated, in the hope that Meghan's presence would be seen as natural, even inevitable. Yet in the end, the silence from the Kardashian-Jenner clan spoke louder than any word. She was not part of the circle, and no amount of effort could manufacture belonging. The press latched onto the angle with ruthless precision. Headlines that once mocked her absence now dissected the rejection painting, it not as a mistake, but as a public rebuff. Meghan tried and failed, blared one tabloid. Royal outreach denied, declared another. The framing was devastating because it revealed not just exclusion, but aspiration thwarted. The sense that Meghan was not in control of her narrative, that she was grasping for a place that others refused to grant her. For Harry, the fallout was equally brutal. His late-night messages to friends, already seen as reactive, now looked even smaller in the context of Meghan's lobbying. Rather than projecting strength, the couple appeared cornered. Their influence diminished, their attempts at social maneuvering laid bare. Instead of looking like victims of Hollywood's insularity, They looked like outsiders begging for access, and the optics were unforgiving. In Hollywood, where image is everything, being perceived as desperate is a fatal blow. Influence is conferred, not demanded. Relevance flows from being wanted, not from asking. Meghan's exposure as someone pushing gifting and lobbying her way toward a guest list that ultimately rejected her was a humiliation that resonated beyond Kylie's birthday party. It marked her not only as excluded, but as unwelcome, a status that is far harder to overcome than mere invisibility. Among industry insiders, the whispers grew sharper. Producers and agents speaking off the record suggested that Meghan's eagerness had only confirmed suspicions that she lacked the effortless magnetism of true A-listers. "You can't campaign your way into that circle," one publicist told Variety. "You either belong or you don't." The comment was echoed across digital platforms, where memes recast Meghan as the girl standing outside the velvet ropes, watching as the party went on without her. The humiliation was compounded by the contrast with her supposed friends. Serena Williams and Priyanka Chopra, both radiant in Kylie's party photos, had not needed to lobby for inclusion, their places assured by reputation and relevance. Meghan, once seen as part of that cohort, was now revealed as the one left behind, straining for recognition, while her peers glided effortlessly into the room. Still, the most cutting element of the saga was yet to come, for if rejection stung, the manner of it, the silence, the refusal to even acknowledge Meghan's attempts, carried a message even sharper than any explicit snub. Kylie Jenner had not unfollowed, had not dismissed, had not even whispered a word. She had done nothing at all. And in Hollywood, as every insider knows, sometimes nothing is the cruelest move of all. Because Kylie's silence was not neutral. It was deliberate, a chilling reminder that Meghan was not important enough to be snubbed aloud, only ignored entirely. Silence in Hollywood is rarely accidental, and in Meghan's case, it was devastating. When celebrities are snubbed, the rebuff usually comes with a flourish. An unfollow on Instagram, a thinly veiled comment, a pointed headline in a gossip column. But Kylie Jenner offered none of that. She did not unfollow Meghan. She did not whisper a dismissive word to the press. She did not even acknowledge that the Duchess had sought her company. Instead, she chose the coldest path of all, indifference, the quiet exclusion that signals not just rejection but irrelevance. For Meghan, the silence was louder than any public slight. Had Kylie unfollowed or publicly dismissed her, Meghan could have played the role of victim, rallying sympathy and painting herself once more as the outsider unfairly treated by an unforgiving establishment. But indifference left her no ground to stand on, no narrative to spin. She was not cast as enemy or rival. She was cast as invisible. In a culture where visibility is everything, invisibility is the deadliest verdict of all. The symbolism did not go unnoticed. Industry insiders remarked that Kylie's non-response was itself a calculated move, a way of signaling that Meghan was beneath the level of engagement. "You only clap back at people who matter," one Hollywood producer told The Hollywood Reporter. "If you ignore them completely, you're saying they don't." That was the message reverberating now. Meghan Markle, once hailed as the woman who shook the monarchy, was not considered relevant enough in Hollywood to warrant even a snub. The consequences spread quickly. Other hosts, watching the backlash unfold quietly, recalibrated their own lists. If Kylie Jenner, arguably the most influential gatekeeper of youth-driven celebrity culture, had chosen not to acknowledge Meghan, then inviting her carried new risks. What if her presence brought headlines of desperation? What if her attendance stirred drama rather than glamour? Slowly, subtly, Meghan began to acquire a reputation more toxic than glamorous. A figure some whispered was becoming social kryptonite, dangerous to stand beside, costly to be associated with. Harry's role in the saga made the optics worse. His frustrated messages to friends, described as bitter and accusatory, only reinforced the perception of the couple as defensive and small. Together, they no longer looked like a pair of glamorous outsiders rewriting the rules of celebrity. Instead, they appeared as desperate strivers scrambling for relevance in a world that was already moving past them. The contrast with their early days in California could not have been sharper. From red carpets and Netflix deals to being quietly ghosted by the Kardashians, their trajectory told a story of power slipping away. Media outlets seized the symbolism. British tabloids gloated with brutal relish, spinning headlines like "Kylie's ice-cold silence" and "From crown to clown." American outlets were more restrained but no less pointed, framing Meghan's exclusion as a turning point, the moment when Hollywood itself had delivered its verdict on her rebrand. On social media, memes flourished, and Meghan photoshopped knocking at a velvet rope, Harry holding a phone with unanswered messages, captions reading, "Social kryptonite in Montecito." For those inside the industry, the implications went further. Hollywood thrives on perception, and perception here was crystal clear. Meghan had tried to cross into the Kardashian Jenner circle, and the circle had refused her. That kind of rejection, once public, does not fade quickly. It lingers, shaping future invitations, coloring negotiations, influencing who dares to be seen beside you. One powerful agent summed it up bluntly. She didn't just miss a party, she lost the narrative. That's far harder to recover from. And yet, even as the silence settled around her, there were whispers that Meghan was preparing to respond, that she would not allow this rejection to define her story. Her team insiders suggested was already sketching out options: a staged reconciliation with the Kardashians, a lavish event of her own designed to reclaim the spotlight, or perhaps a new narrative pivot altogether. The silence may have been cutting, but Meghan was not known for retreat. She was known for counterattack. Now the question was no longer whether Meghan had been rejected, but whether she could strike back with a PR move bold enough to rewrite the story, or if Hollywood's cold shoulder had already become permanent. In the aftermath of Kylie Jenner's silence, Meghan and Harry found themselves in a position neither had anticipated when they first set foot in California, not as cultural disruptors rewriting the rules of fame, but as aspirants left on the outside waiting for a door that never opened. The episode was not merely about a birthday party, nor even about a missed invitation. It had crystallized something far deeper, a symbolic declaration that Meghan, despite her titles and her ambition, had not yet been accepted into Hollywood's A-list, the circle she had tried so relentlessly to enter. The sting of that realization was compounded by the optics of it all. Just a few years earlier, the couple had been framed as the ultimate power players. Netflix contracts, Spotify deals, Oprah interviews, their every move dissected and amplified, as if they had already conquered the entertainment world. Yet here they were, scrolling Instagram like everyone else, piecing together a party. They had not been invited to, watching friends they once counted as allies laugh and pose inside a room they could not enter. It was not the loss of a social night, it was the loss of perception. And in Hollywood, perception is everything. Behind closed doors, Meghan's team debated responses, weighing the risks of appearing reactionary against the need to regain momentum. One option was reconciliation. A carefully staged photo op with members of the Kardashian Jenner clan, a handshake or a smile that could be spun into headlines of unity. Another more audacious idea was to host her own event, one so lavish and curated that it might force the conversation back onto her terms, proving she could still command attention without begging for inclusion. But both paths carried risks, for her Rolodex of powerful friends had visibly thinned, and a poorly attended event would only underscore the very narrative she sought to escape. Harry's instincts leaned toward defensiveness, to push back against the ridicule, to lash out at what he saw as unfair treatment. Meghan, by contrast, knew that silence had to be met with spectacle, that only a bold move could shift the optics. Yet the danger was real. Each misstep now risked reinforcing the perception that she was no longer relevant, that she was reaching rather than leading. The stakes were no longer measured in contracts or interviews, but in credibility, in whether Hollywood's power brokers believed she still had a place at the table. And so, the story reached its most delicate point. Meghan was not finished, not yet, but her position had changed. The rejection at Kylie Jenner's party was not just another headline in the endless churn of celebrity gossip, it was a line drawn in the sand. A reminder that royal titles mean little when weighed against the brutal hierarchies of fame. The question now was not whether Meghan wanted to belong, for that much was obvious, but whether she could recover from being told so publicly, so coldly, that she did not.